South Carolina Congressman and gubernatorial candidate Ralph Norman. Good morning to you, Congressman. So let's start with the SAVE Act. You joined 39 of your colleagues in the House vowing to vote down any and all legislation that comes from the Senate until the Save America Act is passed. You followed through on that earlier this week on a fairly minor small business bill. Do you think this is what it's going to take to get people in the Senate, in that upper chamber, to finally pass this very popular bill?
You know, I was talking to a senator early this morning, and I said, what is it going to take for the Senate Democrats to come around to pass a common sense constitutional bill, the Save America Act, which only requires, proof of citizenship and a photo ID, which you have to use anywhere in this country for anything major that you purchase, from getting on an airplane to buying medicine. And his response was, I think, telling. He said, not until it affects the individual senators in the Senate. Meaning it just hadn't affected them yet. They're still getting a paycheck. They're still getting able to get on airplanes and go home, visit their families. They're still able to make payments. I think what it's going to take is more than what's happened now. You're going to have airports that shut down where they can't get their flights. And, the right thing to do is to cut their payoff, because they're holding this country hostage at a time that is so critical in this country. How many shootings do we have to have? How many planes do we have to have go down? TSA agents have done a yeoman's job, and they're there to protect the public. But the Senate Democrats are, holding this country hostage, and it should not happen, particularly when we're at war, and particularly when we have sleeper cells in this country. And so we'll see.
Yeah, such a good point, sir. Democrats, they're still refusing to fund DHS in a time of war, as you just talked about, in order to stop ICE from deporting criminal migrants. However, Tom Homan wrote a letter laying out some pretty heavy concessions to the Democrats. Do you think that'll be enough to persuade them to finally do the right thing? And, sir, it just always seems that the Republicans are the ones who make the concessions, when Democrats, they never give an inch.
No, and they don't care about the country. I mean, to be honest with you, they just don't care. And they've sided with the criminals in this case, pure and simple. They're siding with criminals, and they don't want them deported. They don't want ICE to let them do their job. You got to remember, ICE agents were assaulted. They were up. The assaults on ICE agents were up in Minnesota 1,500%. They have families. They were doxxed. Their homes were, raided by these, the agitators. So I don't know what it's going to take with them. They ought to be thrown out of office, to be honest with you. And I hope the public will remember this, because this is very important.
Yeah, Congressman, on that point, I want to switch now to the war against Iran. And if you listen to some on the fringe right, and then definitely the mainstream left-leaning media, they question whether President Trump's base supports him starting the war with Iran. But take a listen to CNN's number guru, Harry Enton.
Just take a look here. MAGA GOP view of Trump. Approve 100%.
I've been in politics for 20-some years. I've never seen 100%. So what do you say to your former colleague, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Tucker Carlson about MAGA, the president, and the war?
Look, the president's doing the right thing. The base is with him. The 77 million Americans that voted for this president knew he was going to deliver on what he promised. That's the simple truth of it. And you're right. I hadn't seen 100% in anything, whether it's a weather forecast or whether it's something we predict. But it's a new day and a new low in this country to be where we are. And particularly with, this president has protected America, which he signed an oath to do, unlike Joe Biden and unlike Barack Obama. And so the base is still with him, and I think it's even growing, despite what the media may or may not say as it moves forward. And I think it'll be over relatively quick.
Yeah, Iran has been chanting death to America and calling us the Great Satan for 47 years. I don't know what's surprising about this. All right, Congressman Ralph Norman, thanks for joining us this morning.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.